Driving along the bumpy dirt road, Gabriel seemed to remember everyone in the world, cursing up a storm. A good rain had passed through recently, turning the village streets into something akin to muddy swamps. Finally, the right house appeared, where Gabriel was in such a hurry to reach. Well, actually, his wife sent him here. Opening the car door, he looked down and almost cried. Good Lord, what a hole! What possessed Anita to take on the renovation of this wreck? Naturally, there was no one to answer that question, nor was there any point. Pushing through the gate in the fence, barely held together by goodwill alone, Gabriel entered the yard. Inside was even gloomier than outside. Yep, this was definitely medieval. How did people even live here? Probably some primitive folks. But that was just irony, because according to his wife, a merchant and his large family once lived in this house. Then, they vanished somewhere, or maybe they were helped on their way to the afterlife, but those were just rumors. After the merchant's family, Anita's great-grandmother settled here. She also had quite a few children, incidentally, including Anita's grandmother, and then her mother. In short, their family tree traced back to merchants. But that was long forgotten, except for the old photos on the walls reminding them of their noble lineage. Retrieving the key from his pocket, Gabriel struggled to open the rusty lock and, squeezing through, found himself inside the house. The floor creaked strangely under his feet, as if it wanted to dance. The atmosphere didn't exactly set a positive mood, but Gabriel wasn't here for that anyway. His wife sent him to check the condition of the house and estimate the cost of restoration. Looking around, he even whistled softly. Oh, the walls and ceilings have held up well. But they look so dreary, a bit scary. We'll have to start with them. There, the first items on the restoration list were noted. It was enough to reassure his wife so she wouldn't come up with more unnecessary plans. Such concern, as if she couldn't find another way to keep him busy. Approaching closer, Gabriel lightly tapped the wall and almost froze. They felt like steel. But looking out the window, he breathed a sigh of relief. No, it was just his imagination. The house was made of brick. Although who knows what that merchant did here. However, Gabriel was less concerned about all that, as he wanted to assess the extent of the repairs quickly and return home. An hour later, his phone rang, and with a smile, Gabriel affectionately said, "Yes, darling, of course, I did everything just as you asked. But I just don't understand why you're fixated on this shack. We wanted to fix up the country house, redo the attic. But no, you decided to restore ruins instead. Okay, I get it. Not another word. Yes, I roughly estimated the volume. I'll be home soon, and we'll discuss it." The return journey promised to be just as challenging through the rough terrain, but Gabriel endured it because he loved his wife deeply. Well, if having to grovel before her was part of that love, so be it. Who else but him would understand that Anita would never boss him around? And even if she asked him to do something, it wasn't an order, just regular family routine. 2 hours later, his car appeared in the yard, but he didn't move forward. Gabriel had been in such a rush that he forgot to visit the car wash. To avoid upsetting the neighbors with his dirty car, he parked it far away. As he walked to the entrance, he knocked the sticky clay off his shoes several times. Seeing him through the window, Anita shouted loudly, "Hurry up, those clouds are gathering again." Raising his head to the sky, Gabriel noticed that indeed, the sky was clouding over. Just in time. The last thing I need is to get soaked and catch a cold, he thought. His wife had prepared his favorite soup. "Eat up, dear. You must be hungry," she said. "So, how is the house? Can it be fixed up?" she asked, insisting he be honest or he'd be sent back to inspect every inch again. Gabriel shrugged and replied with sadness in his voice, "Oh, I don't know, Anita. I've noted down everything, what and how much we'll need, but I'm not sure it's worth it. Think about it, why do we need this old shack? We have our apartment where we live now, and also the country house from your parents. What more do you need, darling? Crossing her arms, his wife spoke gently, Gabriel, you see, it's still a memory of my ancestors. I just can't abandon this house. It's dear to me, like everything around me. Despite putting on a sad face, his wife managed to stir in Gabriel a sense of responsibility for the future of this little cabin. Against such arguments, Gabriel couldn't outright refuse. Fine, let's do it your way. But remember, I can only work on the renovations on weekends. And even then, not always, because there's fishing in the garage. You know, it's tradition. Anita poured him more soup and affectionately replied, that's great. I expected nothing less from you. So, we'll start this Saturday, right according to your list. Remembering the hollow sound of the walls in the house that intrigued him, Gabriel hesitated to mention it. He didn't want to spark his wife's intense curiosity. What if she decided to start tearing down walls? No, he couldn't handle that. So Gabriel settled on agreeing to start with just the wallpaper this weekend. Those walls were indeed eerie, as if they'd been glued together since the time of the Egyptian pharaohs. Leaving such relics on the walls felt like disrespecting oneself. After finishing dinner, Gabriel went to his friend's garage, while his wife called her friend. Well, Christina, in a couple of days I'm heading to my personal castle. Yeah, I'm exaggerating, but it's still going back to the roots of my family. At least my husband didn't refuse to help, or it would have been tough for me. Yeah, he agrees to everything but still keeps his own mind. Sometimes I think Gabriel is not from this world. No, he's not an alien, just the way he behaves sometimes gets to me. Anyway, let's not dwell on it, or I'll start coming up with all sorts of nonsense. After chatting a bit more, Anita turned on the TV, where her favorite series was playing. That's how her husband found her when he returned. Well, I'm ready to receive my reward for all my hard work. That night, Gabriel was splendid, which his wife hinted at the next morning. We should send you out on errands more often to recharge your energy. Tell me, do you recharge from some post or something? Oh, come on, don't be grumpy. I was just kidding. Alright, breakfast is on the table, and it's time for you to get ready for work. At the office, Gabriel couldn't resist sharing his concerns with a colleague. Can you imagine? Instead of fishing this weekend, I'll be doing renovations with my wife. And not in our apartment or, at worst, at the country house. No, she had to pick this old house. I don't think she plans to live there. But it seems like there's more to it than meets the eye. His colleague seemed wary, as if this situation concerned him directly. Have you ever thought that your wife might have some secrets? With a puzzled expression, Gabriel said, I'm telling you, if Anita is hiding anything from me, it's where she's stashed her stash. No, she's definitely not hiding anything about the house. She herself doesn't know what really happened there. Sure, a merchant lived there with his family, but that was back in the early 20th century. Come on, Leon, it's all fairy tales for kids who believe in miracles. Alright, let's get to work before the boss sees us and docks our bonus. Then we'll have more trouble and I'll have to explain to my wife where the money went. Despite this, Gabriel started to panic a bit that his wife was indeed hiding something from him. To dispel his doubts, he decided to talk to her about it that evening. When Anita heard that Gabriel believed in such stories, she couldn't help but laugh. Gabriel, you're a grown man and you're talking such nonsense. So what if some merchant and his family disappeared somewhere? That's what my grandmother told me, and her great-grandmother before her. Though I never met her, she passed away when I was just 3. Enough with these unfounded theories, my head hurts already. Anita even seemed a bit saddened, as if disappointed she never got to meet her great-grandmother in person, only through photographs. In reality, she just didn't want to entertain this nonsense. If there were any secrets connected to this house, they had long faded into oblivion. Comforting Gabriel that he could verify everything himself during the renovations, she gestured him towards the bedroom. At dinner that evening, Anita tallied up everything again and said, "Well, it's coming to just under 10,000. Tomorrow you'll come home early again, and we'll head straight to the hardware store. We'll buy new wallpaper, adhesive, and a roller. Maybe something else too. And that's it. The walls will look brand new, and then we'll tackle the rest." The next day felt like punishment for Gabriel. He did come home 2 hours early, but his wife didn't give him a moment's rest. She immediately dragged him out to shop for wallpaper. It was quite a chore, walking through the store watching Anita ponder over things she wasn't even sure about. In the end, they spent over an hour just picking out the right wallpaper, even though it was right there in plain sight. Women's logic, what a thing. One decision worse than the next. Loading their purchases into the car, Gabriel sadly glanced towards a cafe. Naturally, Anita caught on, and hugging him by the shoulders, she murmured, "Okay, let's park the car and grab a bite ourselves. Say what you will, but my husband loves these places. You could usually order some fancy dishes there." Gabriel took advantage of this and treated himself not only to fancy salads but also to some meat delicacies. After dinner at the cafe, he thanked his wife. "Consider it an advance for the work I'll be doing in that damn house. But I still don't understand why we're even renovating it. Let it stand like a museum, those walls there ring out like they're made of steel." Hearing this, Anita frowned and asked sternly, "Hold on, where did you get the idea that the walls are made of steel? Maybe you should have tested them with a magnet. Why are you staring like that? I'm asking you." Shrugging, Gabriel replied, "Who knows? Maybe the brick's petrified. That's why they ring. I didn't say it's solid iron. It just seemed that way to me. Alright, let's go home. We have to get up early tomorrow, and I haven't been able to get enough sleep these past few days." Well, of course, considering how much love his wife gave him, it must be said that he didn't close his eyes all night. That night, Gabriel took a day off, and Anita seemed to decide to take a break too. In the morning, they set off in a direction known only to them, while all the neighbors were still asleep. Gabriel wanted to avoid traffic jams, but the prospect of crawling through mud again was daunting. Well, such were the realities of country life. He tried to steer clear of puddles, but sometimes he couldn't avoid them, sending splashes in all directions. Anita wisely closed the window just in time to avoid getting hit. Watching her, Gabriel could only think of one thing: finishing the renovations quickly and sparing his car from this rough terrain. Throughout the journey, Anita listened to music, closing her eyes and curling up comfortably. Finally, the village appeared, followed by the impassable potholes. Maneuvering through them like a rally driver, Gabriel managed to avoid too much shaking. Taking off his headphones, he quietly said, "Here we are, dear, your castle." Waving him off, Anita hesitated before approaching the gate. "I'm feeling a bit nervous. How about you open the gate, and then we'll go in together?" Laughing heartily, Gabriel once again pushed aside the half-collapsed gate. Then he stepped over the overgrown grass. "After you, madam, I'm responsible for your safety. Or maybe you do know something and just don't want to talk about it. Come on, confess, was your great-grandmother the wife of that merchant? Do you think I made all this up just for fun?" Anita shrugged. "No, my grandmother would have told me anyway. Listen, do you really care who my relative lived with? Go on, let's go, I'm starting to get scared myself." Continuing to chuckle, Gabriel led his wife up the steps. Unexpectedly, Anita flinched and whispered softly, "Are you sure there's nothing strange in these walls? My grandmother told me they never found that merchant. Maybe he was bricked up. What do you think?" Gabriel couldn't resist and squatted down. "Well, that's something. She assured me there were no secrets, even laughed when I talked about strange things in the house, and now she's afraid to go inside herself. That's enough of mystique. We're stripping off the old wallpaper, putting on new ones, and going back." Anita nodded and cautiously stepped inside the house. The tension eased a bit when she saw the familiar interior. And whatever you say, they used to live there and knew how to settle in comfortably. Changing into old clothes, Gabriel began stripping off the old wallpaper. Anita hesitated for a moment but joined him. Soon they reached the spot where Gabriel had knocked before. Looking at Anita, he grabbed a strip of wallpaper and pulled it sharply towards himself. Their surprise was immense when they uncovered a real safe. Such rarities are no longer produced, yet this one had been preserved remarkably well, even in its original color. Interestingly, there was a niche with a key on the side, seemingly made just for it. Trembling hands, Gabriel took the key and looked at his wife. Anita flinched again but then composed herself and whispered, "Let's open it, let's see what's inside." As soon as the barrier separating them from the safe's contents was removed, they both recoiled in horror. Shaken, Anita clung to the door's edge as if it could protect her from an imaginary threat. Gabriel stood beside her, looking like a statue in a museum display. So the husband and wife discovered the safe, and it turned out to hold an amazing surprise. With no other choice, they had to return to the house. Gabriel, being the man and at the same time the biggest lover of secrets, dared to be the first. Peering into the safe, he slowly uttered, "This skull is still intact." Anita nudged him aside. "Enough. Obviously, it's not going to walk away on its own. Better take a closer look, maybe there's something else in there." Almost falling to the floor with joy, Gabriel exclaimed, "Ah, ha. There's a note right next to it. Let me get it, and we'll read it together." Soon, a tightly folded piece of paper was in Anita's hands. She hesitated on what to do with it for a while but finally decided to unfold it. Aged with time, the paper was yellowed, but the handwriting was still legible. It turned out to be a note from her great-grandmother, stating that the skull did not belong to the missing merchant. Apparently, she had received it as a talisman from a local craftsman. He enjoyed a drink or two and brought the skull, passing it off as an archaeological find. Further in the note were wishes for the entire family's health and long life. At the very bottom, great-grandmother revealed the secret. She had lived through a time when all precious items were seized by the state. So she hid a portion of them, hoping that her descendants would find them when the need arose. But how would they find them? In her letter, great-grandmother indicated that there should be photographs preserved, where she held a beautiful chest in her hands. Anita immediately remembered having such a photo somewhere. But she had not attached much importance to it, thinking her great-grandmother had bought it somewhere in an antique shop and it had no special value. Following the clues, the husband and wife reached a corner near the bathhouse. There, digging half a meter deep, they found the sought-after chest. It was placed in a metal box, which had already rusted in places but had not completely fallen apart. What they found inside filled them with indescribable delight. There were antique earrings and some ancient coins, clearly not made of cheap metal. In short, great-grandmother had left them not just a house, but an entire treasure. Gabriel and Anita hesitated to sell such wealth. However, a bit later, the coins did find their rightful owners among collectors. After this, the husband no longer complained to his wife about not wanting to do renovations. On the contrary, he started visiting more often, seemingly hoping to find something else. But everything good should be in moderation, and what they managed to obtain became their only treasure. And as they say, make the most of what you have because second chances don't come often.